Hi everybody, Mike Eddy here, one of the instructors for our VCT, and today we're talking about the first video assignment for Principles 1. This is going to be really fun because it's like creating a photo montage. This is probably something that you may end up being asked to do for a friend, either for graduation or a wedding, something like that, where you take photos and you mix them together to some music. And there's better ways than just making things out of the screensaver or iTunes. We're going to use Final Cut Express and make a real video photo montage. So first thing we want to do is make a folder on our desktop. And I'm going to go under the File menu for the Finder, select New Folder, give it the name Eddy Video 1 for our Video Project 1. We want to work off of the local hard drive. That's a lot faster than working off the VCT student server. The VCT student server is just for saving things at the end of your work time, at the end of the day. When you're there working in the lab, it should be off of the hard drive. The files that we're going to use are preloaded onto the hard drive of the iMac, and so we're just going to link to them and work really fast. We'll show you that. First thing I want to do is launch Final Cut Express. Now I'm down here in the video lab, so my computer is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to run Final Cut Pro, but the things that we're doing are exactly the same as you'd find in Final Cut Express. You're getting a head start on learning a professional video editing system. I think your folder on the iMac is called Other. I've got a folder called Video. I'm just going to launch Final Cut Pro. You may be coming up with a message that stops and says, hey, wait a minute, I'm expecting to see a FireWire connected video deck. Click on Continue because you just want to go through and you don't have a video deck connected to the iMac, so just click on Continue. Here's the interface. It's pretty straightforward. There's 4 windows and you'll need to remember the names for these. This first one is called the browser window, and that's where you're going to have the list of assets that you use in your projects. The second window is called the viewer, and that's where you can view and preview the files that are in the browser. This canvas window displays what's being put together down here in this window called the timeline. So the timeline and the canvas are linked together. The timeline runs left to right in time. There's stacks of tracks of the different assets that you're going to be using, and as you play those, they're displayed in the canvas window. There's a few things that we need to do to get our project set up for this particular assignment. First thing we ought to do is save our project. So let's go into the File menu, select Save Project As. We're going to give it a name, again, Eddy Video 1. I'm going to click on Desktop and save it into my folder that I already created on the desktop. Click on Save. We want to change the sequence settings to match the assets that we're going to be dealing with. So under the Sequence menu, select Settings. Your window may look a little bit different, but the button down here is the bottom, Load Sequence Presets. It's going to come up with a small dialog box and a pop-up menu for a list of sequences. I've got a whole bunch loaded here, but the one we're looking for that we're both going to use is DV NTSC 48 kilohertz. Let's select that, click on OK, and OK again. The next thing we want to do is change a setting so that the files that we come in as photos are a little bit easier to handle. And that's under the Final Cut Express, Final Cut Pro menu, select User Preferences, and under the Editing tab, this still freeze frame duration, your default might be 10 seconds. So this is hours, minutes, seconds, frames. We want to change this to 2 seconds. Type in 200 and then hit the tab key to put that in there. And we're going to click on OK. This is all in the assignment sheet, so you should be able to follow along. Now when we import our photos and things, they're not going to be the default of 10 seconds, which is kind of hard to handle. They'll be 2 seconds. You'll probably end up using them shorter than that, but they'd be a little bit easier to handle. So let's go ahead and import the assets that we want to use. Like I said, they're located on the local hard drive. I'm going to click on the Finder button in the dock to bring the Finder up, and we'll click on the local hard drive, Macintosh HD. They're in the Users folder for the shared user. So now everyone can access the shared user. There's lots of users listed. The one you're logged in will have a little house next to it as home. But in the shared folder, there's a folder called Files for Video Assignments. And we want to use this first folder, 01 Wedding Montage. And I'm just going to take this whole folder and drag it into Final Cut Express. By dragging that folder over, you can see in the browser window the outline gets dark. And when I let go, those files become connected to my project. In an application like Photoshop, as you add layers and add images into that particular document, the document gets larger and larger. But something like InDesign or Final Cut Express, you're linking projects to it. Even HTML code, the HTML document doesn't get any larger. Use reference files that are in a path located near that document, and that's what we're going to do here. Now I can switch back to Final Cut Express by clicking on that and bringing it to the foreground. At this point I want to save again, so Save Project or Command-S. And I want to start to preview the folders and the files that I'm going to use. And click on the disclosure triangle and see the different backgrounds. There's clouds that I can use. What I'm going to do is double click on that file, and then I can see it in the viewer window. Click on the play button. I can also look at the songs that are associated with this. I can double click on these and they will show up in the viewer window, but not as an image like the clouds. The visual representation of this is the waveform. Same buttons apply. I can click on play and preview those assets. So what you're going to want to do is go through all of these and play these and find out which songs you want to use with which photos. Now if you look at the description for this project, you're creating a wedding montage to be played during the reception for Molly Marie and Michael Robert. And they want to have a section of photos for Molly, and then a section of photos for Michael, and then a section of photos of them together. So you want to put their names on the screen, and then you'll want to use the wedding date towards the end of the montage. And the photos are labeled. So there's 01 Molly, 02 Mike, 03 of them together. Now some of these are alphabetical and listed. Some of them are ones that you're going to want to choose which ones you want to go in what order. They don't have to go in the particular order that they're just lined up here alphabetical. It's your choice. Let's show you how to put some of these files to music. So we're going to use 3 music files, one for Molly, one for Mike, and one for them together. And we want to mark these music pieces on the beat of the music and then cut the changes from photo to photo on those marks. Let's go up to the music folder and let's pick one. I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to see it in the viewer window. And now that's really loud. In fact, I can tell it's loud because of the way it's distorting on the audio meters here in the lower right corner. The green is good, yellow maybe, red is bad. So as I play this, I can see that it's peaking out into the red. Typically, when you bring in audio from CDs, the audio level is pretty hot. We're going to have to bring that down, and I just know from experience that these can be brought down to a -12. I'm going to click on the little field next to levels here and type in -12 and the tab key. And you can see what it did is it moved this pink line down. That's the audio level line. In fact, I can just, with my cursor, when it changes over that, drag that up and down, and you see that it changes the number as well. I'm going to bring that back down to -12, and now let's play it and watch our audio meters. Much better, and it won't be distorted. So once I've got that volume set, I'm going to bring that down into my timeline. To bring down a music file, I want to click on this little icon up here. I'm going to drag it right down into my timeline and put it at the beginning. Click on the window for the timeline to bring that to the front. And if I click on the home key, which is on your keyboard, or I can slide the viewer back and click to move the timeline. I can move that back to the beginning of my timeline. One of the really nice shortcuts that you're going to want to learn is the shortcut of Shift-Z. You guys know that Command-Z is undo. Well, in Final Cut Express, Shift-Z is the keyboard shortcut for Fit to Window. So now by clicking Shift-Z, now I can see my entire audio clip within the space of my timeline. I don't have to zoom out to move in and see this. Right now it looks like just a generic green line, but we can change some things in order to see that and see the audio waveform better. Down here in the corner there's a little disclosure triangle, and if I click on this I get a pop-up menu. I want to select Show Audio Waveforms. And that's going to show me the pattern of the music as it plays for this particular song. The other thing I think I'm going to do is turn on my keyframes and the toggle the clip overlays. So that's this button right here, and it's going to show me the volume level represented here in the timeline the way we saw it in the viewer window. So I can adjust the volume up and down in here too. I'm going to put that back to -12. Now we talked about wanting this to look very professional by cutting the changes in the photos to the beat of the music. Now the way you do that is to put in markers. The shortcut for placing a marker is simple. It's the M key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and select my music file so that the markers are connected to that music file, and then play the music, and as I listen to it I'm going to tap the M key, kind of tap it to the beat of the music, and now I'll have marks in my music file. Again, the canvas window is connected to the timeline, so I can click on the play button for the canvas window and listen along.
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, my lover stands.
I'm going to stop this. So what you've got are lots of markers to the beats. Now, you don't have to change the image at every single beat and at every single marker. You can go across several markers. It's just that now it's easy for me to mark the music to the beat, and I can have my photos go across several markers, but I know that it looks good because it's going to cut on the beat of the music. Let's show you how to do this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and by clicking on the timeline to bring that forward, I can drag this zoom in, kind of drag strip right here. This keyboard shortcuts too of Option minus and Option plus. But as I get closer in, I can see the space that I want to work with. I can play this again. And those markers are associated and connected to the music. So if I were to move the music, those markers go along with it. Let's play some photos in here. So if this is the music I want to use for Molly, I'm going to open up the folder for Molly, double click on the first picture. Oh, isn't that a cute baby? I want to find a different one to start with. There we go. I'm going to use this one. And I can tell by my slide bars here that this photo is not quite fitting in here. I can select this menu here on the viewer fit to window so I can see these better. And just by clicking on that image and dragging it down to the timeline, I can snap to that marker. The thing that you want to have turned on is snapping, and there's a little button right here for snapping. The keyboard shortcut is N. So you can turn that off and you can turn it on. With having that off, when you bring it down, it doesn't necessarily snap to the right place. You can just drag it anywhere. But if you have snapping turned on, when you drag it, it lines up a little bit easier with the marks that you've made. When you're changing the length of a photo, you do it in the timeline, and the cursor changes when you place your mouse over the end of a video clip, changes it to a little edit change icon, and you can move that anyway and it will snap to the markers. It's a very easy way to place the videos in there. Now, one of the issues that people run into is an overwrite edit versus an insert edit. And let me show you the difference here. You'll see the big difference on the audio. If I bring my cursor down from the viewer, and now I've got it placed in the first video track of the timeline, you can see how the cursor changes as I move it, and it changes as I'm above or below the kind of faint gray line. If I'm above the line, you see the arrow is pointing to the right. That says that I want to do a insert edit. And if I let go, it inserts that image into my timeline, splitting the timeline at that point. Well, this is not what I want to do because it just split my audio file, and it's going to have a gap with no audio. I'm going to do Command Z to undo that action. And I'm going to pull this down to the timeline again. Now watch closely. I don't want to be above that gray line. That's an insert. I want to be below that gray line where the arrow is pointing down. That's an overwrite. An overwrite means it's going to overwrite whatever's in that position. In this case, there's nothing there, and that's fine. That's what I want to do. When I let go, it puts it into the timeline. Let's just choose a different photo and see how that works. I want to find one that is landscape. Take this down, and I drag it. If I'm in an overwrite position, it is going to overwrite the photo that was there before if I undo. But that's what I want to do. I don't think you want to do a insert. It's going to split the audio. Command Z to undo. I want to drag this image down get it below that faint gray line so the arrow is pointing down, and that is an overwrite edit. Now with my snapping turned on, I can snap these next to one another. I can move them around. I can snap them to these marker points. But one of the other neat things that we're going to ask you to do is figure out how to deal with portrait pictures. Now, some of these ones we looked at in the beginning, there's our cute little baby born at Christmas time. And if I bring this down to the timeline, again with an overwrite edit, and I click my playhead onto that spot, I've got a kind of a ugly black area behind that photo. So the thing we want to do is we want to add some different video to the timeline to cover that black area. And that's where we've got our folder called backgrounds. And these were the cloud pictures. So by double clicking on something in the viewer, or rather browser, it shows up in the viewer window, and that's where we can preview that. Beautiful sunset. Let's do this first cloud one just as an example. And when I drag that down to the timeline, I want to get an overwrite edit, and it's really quite long. It's longer than what I need it to be. So I'm going to get to the point where I can see both ends. I'm going to drag that a lot shorter. But the problem is that it's on the timeline. I can make a new track, I can make a new video track by simply dragging this up into that open area. If I move this over here on top of our photo, click up here to move the playhead, the clouds are on top of my image. That's not right. The image that's on the uppermost track is the one that's visible. I'm going to switch these around. I'm going to put the photo on top of the clouds and click, and there, that's much better. Now I don't have a black, kind of a dumb generic black background behind my photos. I've got something interesting, and it's a video file. Now I'll cover those up. So I'm going to put all my photos on the second track, and here's another one I know that's got a drag that a little bit longer. So now these cover up the whole scene. I don't need the clouds behind there. So I'm just going to have the clouds play behind the images that are portrait. And we don't need clouds behind these ones that are landscape orientation. So I can even drag that and move that smaller. Let's say we've got another portrait one. Where was another portrait one? We'll go down here. There's that picture. We'll drag that one down, and we'll make our clouds longer to the end of that. So now we can play. We've got
the ship that goes sailing somewhere.
So to cut these to the beat of the music will just feel a lot more professional and polished. The thing you want to keep track of, though, is the length of time then of all the photos. So if I look at all the photos of Molly, 20, 30 photos somewhere in there, this song is not going to be short enough. The song is going to be too long. I'm going to do my keyboard shortcut of Shift-Z. First I click on the timeline, Shift-Z. Now I can see the whole thing. Now I realize that I'm going to have to cut some of this song out, but I really like the ending. So what I need to do is cut out a portion of it, and I can see from the audio waveform that there's like a break here and kind of an instrumental part. I'm going to take that part out. I'm going to switch from the arrow tool to a blade tool. And when I mouse over this, the cursor is different. I can click once, and now I've split the audio where I'd like it to be. go back to the arrow tool, and I can drag the length and change the length of this. I'm going to drag it all the way up to here where I can see the audio waveform getting a little bit smaller. Drag that there and snap it together. And now let's listen and see if it's pretty close.
Again, I'll go sailing. Happy we'll be.
Well, not great, but it's not abrupt. It kind of fits together. You'll have to zoom in and experiment and fit those together to make this fit the length of music. You have to make the length of music fit the number of slides, and depending on the pace. If it's an upbeat music, you might have your slides going faster. If it's a little bit slower music, you might do a little bit longer between your slide changes. And again, when we go to the next section, we're going to want to blend those together. I can see that this particular song, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This particular song kind of fades out. I can drag this a little bit shorter so that I can start in with my next song kind of right away and get you know, an upbeat change to it. Just looking at the project list, make sure we got everything on here. Adjust the timing, add transitions where appropriate. Transitions are listed in the browser window under Effects. There's video transitions listed here. You can apply these to go between different images. I'm going to drag my slider over here so I can see these two images together. You take this, one of these effects, and you drag it down right in between those two clips, and now I've applied a dissolve between there. And when I play this,
That go sail.
those two images dissolve underneath. It's probably better applied without the background behind there. Let's do it again on this one and watch the dissolve of the two images together. Now, there's lots of different video transitions. You can experiment with them. Use them appropriately. Of course, you don't want to be obnoxious and have so many that it's distracting from, you know, the bride and groom. Hey, look at me, I'm the video producer. You want to create the nice story. So you might have some dissolves, you might have some different effects that change from one thing to another. Then we want to add text. So now we also want to add text to the different sections. Remember, we said that this part was going to be for Molly Marie. So now looking at my timeline, I've got the clouds, I've got the photos on track 2. I want to add some text. In the browser window under Effects, if we scroll down to Video Generator and scroll down to the folder called Text, and let me scroll down to one that's just labeled Text, that's the one we want to use. I'm going to take that and drag it directly to my timeline into track 3. Now the default is fairly long. I can shorten that up. I'm going to move my yellow playhead on top of there so I can see what this is going to look like. And if I want to edit this, I have to double click on it. It shows up in the viewer window, and I click on this tab for controls. This is where I can type in my text. I'm going to say Molly Marie, and I want to change what that looks like. So here's my list of fonts, and I'm going to click on and choose something kind of nice. There's Curls MT, and I can make that larger, and I can make it bold. And then I can also add a little drop shadow. That makes it a lot easier to read. And that's under the Motion tab. Down here I can check box to turn on drop shadow. Now there's a disclosure triangle where you can change lots of settings, but for now you don't need to change those. The default looks pretty good. So a little bit easier to read, Molly Marie. It's kind of not really in the right place. So I'll go back to my Control tab and I can click on this button for origin. And if I click on the little crosshairs here, now when I go over to the canvas, wherever I click and drag, that's where it's going to line up. So I'm going to put it a little bit lower than her face so it's not connected to that. And you see it took my changes here with the numerical values. So we want you to be creative. We want you to have fun with this. We want you to be able to put beats to the music, edit the music, put the photos in there to the beats, use lots of creativity, have fun with the order of the photos that you're going to use, edit the music to be shorter to fit the length of songs that you have, put in the text for Molly Marie, Michael Robert, and then December 6, 2010 at the end. And come up with a really nice ending. I mean, this is going to be for the wedding couple. They're going to show it to all their family and friends at the wedding reception, and we want it to turn out nice. So I hope you're going to have fun with this. Remember that you want to save this on your hard drive and then move it to the VCT student server when you're done at the end of the day, but then move it back to your hard drive to work on it, and it will sync back up to the files that are located in the shared user folder. And the way we want you to export this is under the File menu, select Export, and just this first one, QuickTime Movie. I think that's all. If you got any questions, be sure to ask your instructor. You can watch this video as many times as you want and make sure everything's clear. All right? Thanks a lot. See you later.